Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you disappeared? You spoke, but no one really listened. You shared an idea, only to watch someone else repeat it 5 minutes later and receive all the credit. You sent a message that stayed on seen. You tried to connect, but people seemed strangely distant. It's one of the most frustrating experiences we can have, because being ignored doesn't just hurt our feelings, it challenges one of our deepest human needs, the desire to be noticed. But what if the reason people ignore you isn't what you think? What if it's not always about your appearance, your intelligence, or even your personality? The truth is far more surprising, and by the end of this video, you'll understand the hidden psychological forces that make people overlook someone, and, more importantly, how to make sure you're never invisible again. The first thing to understand is that people are far less focused on you than you imagine. This isn't meant to sound harsh. In fact, it's liberating. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. We naturally believe others are paying close attention to us, judging every word we say and every mistake we make. In reality, most people are trapped inside their own thoughts. They're worrying about their own problems, replaying their own conversations, and wondering how they're being perceived. When someone doesn't notice you, it often has nothing to do with you at all. They're simply occupied by the endless movie playing inside their own mind. Another reason people ignore you is that familiarity often becomes invisible. Think about how often you stop noticing the ticking of a clock after a few minutes, or the hum of an air conditioner after sitting in a room. The human brain is designed to filter out what becomes predictable. The same thing happens in social relationships. If you're always available, always agreeable, and always present in exactly the same way, people unconsciously stop paying attention. It's not because they don't value you. It's because the brain saves energy by ignoring what feels constant. Ironically, sometimes the nicest people become the easiest to overlook because they never create a moment that breaks expectations. Confidence also plays a much larger role than most people realize. Humans constantly read nonverbal signals without even thinking about it. Before you say a single word, people have already noticed your posture, your eye contact, your pace of movement, and your tone of voice. If these signals communicate uncertainty, others often respond with less attention. This doesn't mean they're intentionally disrespecting you. It simply means the brain automatically prioritizes people who appear confident, decisive, and emotionally secure. Confidence acts like a psychological spotlight, naturally drawing attention without demanding it. There's another uncomfortable truth. Sometimes people ignore those who desperately seek approval. Imagine two individuals entering the same conversation. One constantly agrees with everyone, laughs at every joke, apologizes unnecessarily, and tries hard to be liked. The other remains respectful, but isn't afraid to express genuine opinions. Surprisingly, the second person usually commands more respect. Why? Because authenticity creates curiosity, while constant approval-seeking often signals insecurity. People are naturally drawn toward those who seem comfortable with themselves, rather than those who appear to need validation from others. Social value also shapes attention more than we like to admit. This doesn't mean money, fame, or status alone. Social value comes from bringing something meaningful into an interaction. It could be humor, insight, creativity, kindness, leadership, or even calmness under pressure. When people consistently associate your presence with positive emotions or useful perspectives, they begin seeking your attention rather than ignoring it. In other words, people don't remember everyone they meet. They remember how someone made them feel. Technology has made this problem even worse. Every day, People receive hundreds of notifications, messages, videos, and advertisements competing for their attention. Attention has become one of the rarest resources in modern life. Sometimes your message isn't ignored because it's unimportant. It's simply buried beneath dozens of other distractions. This is why timing, clarity, and emotional impact matter more than ever. In today's world, being noticed isn't just about speaking louder. It's about saying something meaningful enough to interrupt the endless flow of information. Fear can also make people seem distant. Sometimes someone ignores you because acknowledging you would require emotional effort. Perhaps they feel guilty. Maybe they're jealous. Maybe they're uncertain about what to say. Avoidance often feels easier than honesty. We tend to assume that silence means rejection, but psychology tells us silence can also be a defense mechanism. Many people avoid conversations that challenge their emotions because discomfort is something the brain naturally tries to escape. Interestingly, people are often drawn toward mystery. If every detail of your life is constantly available, there is little reason for curiosity. This doesn't mean playing manipulative games or pretending to be someone you're not. It simply means allowing some space in your interactions. People appreciate what they have the opportunity to discover. The human mind enjoys solving puzzles. When everything is immediately revealed, curiosity disappears. Sometimes saying less makes people pay more attention than saying everything. Another hidden factor is emotional energy. We often underestimate how contagious emotions really are. Research consistently shows that moods spread between people through subtle facial expressions, voice patterns, and body language. If someone consistently radiates stress, negativity, or desperation, others may unconsciously distance themselves to protect their own emotional state. On the other hand, people who remain calm, optimistic, and emotionally balanced often become magnets for social attention. This isn't because life is always easy for them. It's because emotional stability feels safe, and humans naturally seek environments where they feel emotionally secure. Ironically, trying too hard to avoid being ignored often produces the opposite effect. Constant texting, excessive explanations, repeated attempts to gain attention, or always initiating conversations can unintentionally reduce your perceived value. Scarcity has a powerful psychological influence. We tend to appreciate what isn't constantly available. Healthy boundaries don't push people away. They often increase respect. Knowing when to step back is sometimes more powerful than knowing when to step forward. Perhaps the most important lesson is this: not everyone is supposed to notice you. We often measure our worth by the number of people paying attention, but real confidence comes from attracting the right people, not everyone. Some individuals simply won't connect with your personality, your values, or your communication style, and that's perfectly normal. Chasing universal approval is an impossible mission. The people who make the greatest impact in history were rarely loved by everyone. They were remembered because they stayed authentic, despite being misunderstood. The most magnetic people aren't those who constantly demand attention. They're the ones who have a clear purpose beyond gaining it. They speak because they have something worth saying. They listen because they're genuinely curious. They walk into a room without trying to impress anyone, yet people notice them anyway. Authenticity has a quiet power that no performance can imitate. So if you've ever felt invisible, remember this: being ignored doesn't automatically mean you're unimportant. Sometimes people are distracted. Sometimes they're insecure. Sometimes they're overwhelmed. And sometimes you're simply standing in the wrong crowd. Instead of asking, "Why don't they notice me?" ask yourself a different question. Am I becoming someone whose presence naturally adds value? Because attention can be chased, but respect is earned. When you invest in your confidence, your character, your emotional stability, and your purpose, something remarkable happens. You stop worrying about being seen. And that's often the exact moment the world finally starts noticing you.